must understand about this place, Winston, is that there are no martyrs. The weight of the religious persecutions of the past. They were failures. They set out to eradicate heresies, and they ended by perpetuating them. We do not make that mistake. We make them tell the truth.
Why bother with me?
You are a flaw in the pattern, Winston. You are a stain which has to be wiped out. When finally you confess to us, it must be of your own free will. We do not destroy the heretic, we convert him. We capture his inner mind. We reshape him. We burn all evil out of him. We bring him over to our side, not merely in appearance, but genuinely. Heart and soul. We make him one of ourselves. No one whom we bring to this place ever stands out against us. We will lead you, step by step, to the point from which there is no return. Never again will you be capable of love or friendship, or joy of life, or laughter, or courage, or curiosity, or integrity. You will be hollow. We will squeeze you empty, and then we will fill you with ourselves, with love of Big Brother. Now, before we begin your cure, are there any questions you would like to ask? Where is you?
Yo, peace, everybody. Wake up. It's 1984. Wise again. I really appreciate you guys. Anybody that decided to listen and learn. Um, now that YouTube has, moved me over to this channel here, it's sad because I have to try to hopefully reach and find the many friends and the many people that I grew cool with over the last several months with my in-game channel. Whereas this channel is the underground channel where we're going to kind of go more deeper and keep things a little bit more real and more fundamental as far as the understanding of, the New World Order, the Illuminati, the Jesuits, the Ashkenazis, and so on and so forth. There's so many different topics. So I really appreciate just you guys being up early. You slept your whole life. And I'll say this to the people that's here, Arm AV, Elbert, Brother Yeah Right, Tyler John, Angel Z Cuts as always, and anybody else that decided to join in the middle of the live stream. We normally get numbers increase as we start rocking and rolling, which is a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing is that, once we're in the middle of a conversation, all of a sudden we get 40 people that join, and then those 40 people are asking what we're talking about. And it's like, well, you kind of jumped in a little too late. And we're, this is, when you guys kick it with me, and when you guys, when you guys resonate and hit on that on that frequency with me, we are not a channel, we are not a show. I am not a tuber, though I use YouTube to facilitate what I'm teaching. This is a study hall. This is a class of knowledge and intellectual and education. This is what we are. This is, when you come here on my channel, man, and you guys want to talk with me, man, you're getting your money's worth. Even though there's no monetary value, but you're getting you're getting fed. I'm pouring something into you, and you're pouring things into me. This is different. So just understand that, because we're going to get into some really interesting stuff and interesting topics, as I'm leading you guys down this series, as this is part 2 of our conversation from yesterday. So yesterday we briefly focused on the fundamental and this concept of who is they. And you hear that from many different truthers. Everybody, truthers that are promoting white supremacy and calling people niggers and Negroes and all of the crap. And then you got your black supremacy who's calling white people the devil, and they call them recessive genetic races and dying species of race. You got all types of people who know a little bit about information or the awakening, but they awaken at different different negative states of awakening. You know, your awakening is what? You believing that your black race is superior than other races, so therefore, you're the gods of the earth. You're the original gods, but everybody else are your slaves. Or is your awakening the white race, that your blonde hair and blue eyes make you superior because your brain is this and that, and every other race is subservient to you? Or your Latino race because of La Raza and because of your warlike, race, that this is the problem, is that everybody is waking up in these little pods, but nobody is understanding the bigger truth, the bigger psyop, which what we covered yesterday, which is, regardless of race, creed, color, religion, geographic location, whether you're fat, skinny, curly hair, nappy hair, straight hair, big lips, short lips, it doesn't matter. This Illuminati Luciferian system, as we read yesterday, and you guys can go back and check that, as I read, it has allegiance to the One Alliance. The One Alliance is a Luciferian spirit-like materialistic spiritual incantation energy that they've created, whether under the spirit of the seven fallen demons, whether it's Belial, Chemosh, Satan, Moloch. You can name all those fallen demons, and I don't want to do all that, but who knows? But Satan and Lucifer is their alliance, and they don't care about whether you're a Jew or black, whether you're a Jew or German, or French, or white from Canada, or white from Australia. They don't care. That's one thing about these people, is that, as hateful and as insidious they are, they love everybody. They are willing, if you have the right blood, or if your blood could be mixed, kind of like what happened with Prince Harry and the girl that he married, like, right, they had to make sure that her bloodline was great, okay to mix. Prince Diana, they had to make sure that bloodline was approved. If that bloodline is not approved to mix with these people, you're not making any offsprings for them. You have to do rituals, and whether satanic rituals or not, to even be allowed to be considered mating material for their baby making machine. Your Justin Trudeau's in the world, that blood pack that they're signing, this blood pack is just to get you to be considered for the possibility of being used as a host for their bloodline. So a lot of people that have all these different, they know what we know in some cases about, the awakening and, the, secret societies, but they always just choose to stay in that one frame of thought. I know I used to, let's keep it real. I used to know a lot of black people into black supremacy, right? They try to, yo, what up? Why is it? Why is this and that? Black man, arm, leg, arm, head. Black man is Allah. I used to know 7%ers and 5%. I used to know all these types of dudes. I used to do hip hop a lot. Used to rhyme, so I used to battle against all types of dudes who was into, black man is God. And I just say, well, the black man is God and the white man is the devil, then black man created white man. So I guess we directly responsible, is it not? If the black man is God and the world is so screwed up, and we created Satan, and I guess it's our fault that things are screwed up. So it all leads back to a loop, a redundant loop, because it doesn't make sense when you try to own this. Don't own it. Don't try to own what they've done. You can't own that. I don't want to own the destruction that they've done and the harm they've caused over, many different ages and many different decades in our society. I don't want to own that. Let those bloodline families own that, because like I said before, when you own that, how far do we go? How did the white Rothschilds get their gold? How did the white Ashkenazis, the white Jews, the racist Arab nations, if you want to call it, how did they get their wealth? You say, well, did it come from a black man named Mansa Musa? Did it come from Kush? Did it come from the Asiatic cultures? How did Hitler come up with the concept of an Aryan nation, of a perfect race? Did he get it from the Vedas? Did he get it from the Vedic cultures? Did he get it from the Aryan cultures in India? So everything, these people has hijacked cultures and races across all spectrums. I remember there were stories about from ancient African cultures. They talk about these people. They call them the one-legged people. Now, one can look at that as these people like snake people, because they, a snake, it's like looks like one leg. Are these snakes that visit the continents of Africa, or is that one-legged means these are popes and priests? Because when they wear the robe, their legs are covered, so they look like they have one leg. Or are these, some people even go as far as say, are these Anunnakis? Are these, different types of Elohims, or from the story of from the book of Enoch and the Sumerian scriptures? Who are these people? I even went and told you guys that, we talk about the Jews, and we talk about the Rothschilds, and we get more into um, the Arab side of the Illuminati and the Sumerian scriptures, and talk about Babel and Moloch. And we realize that when the Ashkenazis, and you had all these rich empire families in the Sumerian cultures, that it took a black pharaoh by the name of Tahakwa that actually freed Babylon from the clutches of the Luciferian families. You don't know that. See, that's how deep. And this is how some supremacy groups would choose to ignore certain facts and certain things to fit their skewed narrative of awakening. So even in our own little awakening culture, not everybody is awake as you think, because you don't know the true story. You just pick it in, you just snatching chapters and using those chapters to fit your narrative. But did you know that there was a black pharaoh named Tahakwa that freed the people of Babylonia and Sumeria from the clutches of Molochians, of the Luciferian agenda? Now, they went to war and freedom, but then, obviously years later, in Babylon, and Moloch, the people that followed the black arts restored. There was cultures that was so afraid to conquer Babylon that after they destroyed Babylon, they went back and rebuild it. You imagine that? Like, you go to war with a country because the country is, practicing black magic, and then you're so afraid of the black magic that they do, that after you destroy the country, you go back and build it back up and say, I'm sorry. This is what they did. So they were reached. So a lot of those Sumerian cultures and those Arab cultures was actually calling on, believe it or not, African cultures and African pharaohs to help fight off the Luciferian bloodline families. Believe it or not. So we all have been in this battle against these people, right, for eons. Our ancient brothers and sisters, our ancient, Aztecans, and Quetzalcoatl, and all these different cultures, and Chinese cultures and white cultures, from the Nordic races to Scandinavia to even the Russian races in the Caucasus. We're always fighting against this bloodline family who took many different races and many different shapes and many different forms. You had, obviously, the central conversation of what we talk about revolves around, the white Illuminati structure of the Jesuits, the Catholic Church, and then we move on to the Illuminati, United States, the banking systems, etc. Right? So we tend to focus primarily on that. But what I try to teach you guys is that even though we focus on that because that's the hottest new, the most recent, current, in power today structure of the Illuminati, that back before white civilization was purely established, you had bloodline families that were in Persia, in Turkey, in Africa, in China, in India, in Mexico, in Australia. You had other houses, as they refer to, other houses that were still kings and queens and emperors and pharaohs and And all this stuff, some people go into theory and say all this stuff with Queen Elizabeth and princes and Rome and all this stuff goes back to the pharaonic bloodline, the bloodline of King Tut, the bloodline of Ramses II. Who knows where that bloodline goes back to. But here's what we did yesterday. We know that bloodline goes to the top of that pyramid, and at that top of that pyramid, that energetic force is the energy of Satan, is fallen demons, is fallen elves, is fallen energies, however you want to, we can break it down in so many different ways. That's the top. That is what you need to understand about they. They, who are they, is the children of the satanic synagogue of Satan and Lucifer. They are from that synagogue. That synagogue meaning house or church or family. They are from the synagogue of Moloch, the synagogue of the fallen Babylon of black magic and sorcery, voodoo. That is the synagogue. So when you say who they are, the they is not just the Jew. The they is just not the black or the white or the Australian, like I mentioned yesterday. They encompass all these different groups. The Boule, you have black people like Al Sharpton, black people like Martin Luther King. You think he was a great man? Look into the story of Martin Luther King. You'll know more about him. You'll learn more about him. These people were not moral people before they became fixtures of our society and fixtures of our holidays. There's a reason why society catapult them in your face. There are pimps and whores and prostitutes, men that sold drugs, men that beat on women, men that murdered people, may have murdered people, part of gangs, shootouts. You'd be surprised. Jesse Jackson was a vice lord or a Blackstone, gangbangers. This is what you got to understand. And then when you grow up and you read about this stuff and you come to find out that Barack Obama might have been a bisexual, Barack Obama might have had these type of tendencies, then you say, well, no figure. Well, go figure. What do you expect? There's videos out there, Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, whatever you want to call that jerk, wearing Daisy Dukes. Go look it up. There's videos out there. This guy, when he was younger, wearing women Daisy Dukes. Looked like he was in a trailer with his ass cheeks hanging out. Justin Trudeau, weirdo. So then when you have, people get into this, this other level with Jeffrey Epstein, the guy hanging himself, yesterday. Now he's found, suicide in the jail cell. What do you expect? You think he's really suicided, or did they exit stage right like they did Bill Gates? These people are hiding. These people are going back into their caves. Mission failed. So now they stay in their caves for a certain period of time until they reveal themselves again to the general public 20 years later. Or maybe you get some plastic surgery done. That's if you believe that type of story. Believe anything the media tell you. The media comes from the word medi, which comes from Turkey, which means what? That's a form of sorcery. Media. Medi is a medium. The word medium is spirit, energy, is a force. So, just kind of recapping yesterday, go back and check that live stream out to kind of catch you up to what we're going to cover today. So let's move a little bit more as we take a step down from the true overarching of who they are, which is the synagogue of Satan, because their own doctrine tells you that. That doctrine tells you where, Vladimir Lenin, Karl Marx, these communists, etc., are writing love letters to Satan because they hate nature. Climate change is because they hate nature. They hate the climate, so they're going to change it that fits them. They are changing the climate. Climate change is them creating an environment that's conducive and productive to their organism, which could be an alien organism if you really want to go deeper. Okay? So let's take a step down, right? Instead of going from the bottom of the pyramid up, we're going from the top of the pyramid down. So I'm going to read something to you where you have to understand it and carrying over from yesterday's convo this Sunday morning. And I appreciate all you guys checking me out. I really do. So this is going to be a very much interesting and deeper. So for all my religious people out there, this might this might get you a little bit, because you have to really think about your religion. I don't practice religion. I study religion. Have studied religion all my life. I don't practice religion. I take from it what I feel in my spirit that might be a gem, and I'm telling you, majority of it I discard, because I know a lot of it was written either by the adversarial or written by these people that we're going to talk about today. Remember, all these people that we're going to cover have the one alliance to who? Satan. Whether you believe in Satan or not, or Lucifer, or whether you look at Satan as being an expression of the lower chakra, or Satan being a expression of the lower energy, or Lucifer being a concept of light consciousness and awakening in this material pleroma, or whether you think simply as Satan being a red guy with a pitchfork sticking you in your butt, and Lucifer being some beautiful angel that has wings that span 300 cubits. Think about that. Nevertheless, this says, Unam Sanctum, one God, one faith, one spiritual authority. This is from Pope Boniface VIII. This is the premise of why we see things like COVID, why we see things like wars, why we see things like government control, government tyranny, right? Wars. This is framing that concept, and why we even having this discussion in the first place. Take the crackhead Satan out of it in the Illuminati crack house. Take him out of it for a second. Why are we under control? Why are we being put into this servitude by our own quote unquote human race, if you think they're human? And I'm going to read this to frame why men has enslaved other men, and why men has even sold out to begin with. It says, urged by faith, we, and that's not me and you, that's them, we are obliged to believe and to maintain that the church is one. The church is holy, Catholic, and also apostolic. We believe in her firmly. That's the church. And we confess with simplicity that outside of her, there is neither salvation nor remission of sins. That outside the church, you can't get any salvation, not through yourself, not through your own no. It says the Canticles, the Canticles proclaims, one is my dove, my perfect one. She is the only one, the chosen of who bore her. And she, being a church, represent one soul, mystical body whose head is Christ, and the head of Christ is God. All right, it's their Bible quote, 1 Corinthians 11, chapter 11, verse 3. In her then is one Lord, one faith, one baptism. That's a whole lot of ones, right? That's a whole lot of ones when you start getting into this one stuff. One world government, one army, one nation, one God, one this, one that, right? So you say, well, what's bad about that? We believe that there's one source. But their logic is a different one. It's a much different one than you think. There have been, at the time of the deluge, look how they start talking about the ark. There had been a time of the deluge or flood, only one ark of Noah. So look, listen to their logic. They're saying when there was a flood, when the first flood, when the world was destroyed by a flood, that was only one ark. That was only one boat, right? That was only one Noah. There's only Noah, one ark. It says there had been at a time of the flood only one ark of Noah. Yeah, Noah only had one boat. Okay, what's your point? Prefiguring the one church. Look how they tie this in. Prefiguring the one church, which ark, having been finished to a single cubit. Now check this out. Had only one pilot. See the twisted logic? Hey, look, guys, I want to control you. I will control everybody. And I'm going to say that I'm the vicar of Christ, that I'm the vicegerent of the world. I mean, you agree with that, don't you? No, we don't. Well, look, the world was destroyed by a flood, right? Yes. God told Noah to create one boat, right? Yes. There was only one Noah, right? Yes. It was only a single cubit, right? Yes. Noah was the only one pilot of that boat, right? Yes. So therefore, it only should be one person in charge of the population, right? This is this is how they're thinking. This is fun educational stuff, but I'm gonna break it down in a fun way so you can get it and you can teach it to other people. And when you do teach it, I'll just ask for you to just say in your heart, man, it was Brother Wise that took me there. So thank you, because I need all the prayers and the blessings I can get. All right. Anyway, only one pilot and one guide, and that's Noah. They go on to say, and we read that outside of the ark, all that subsisted on earth was destroyed. So they saying everything on earth was destroyed by the flood except for that one ark, that one pilot, that one boat. So Noah was the one that was left after God destroyed everything. And the boat housed Noah, which protected him from everything that was destroyed. So it was one boat, one pilot, one single cubit, which is not really true, which is a lie, because the boat was more than one single cubit. They said that the boat was the size of almost close to 500 or something feet, which is equivalent to about 300 or so cubits. But that's them just not telling you the truth, right? And that's straight from deep occultic knowledge that that people should know. But let's read this here, second paragraph. We venerate. Look how they flip it. We venerate this church as one. So the church is the boat. We venerate this church, and this is what you're getting into Admiraltine law. You start getting into why that concept of Admiralty law, and the law of the water, right? This is coming. They bringing up Noah, the flood, the deluge, and the boat, and the church, right? So we venerate this church as one. The Lord, having said by mouth of the prophet, here's a quote: "Deliver, O God, my soul from the sword, and my only one from the hand of the dog." Go on another verse. This was Psalm 21:20. He says, this person they're referring to, he prayed for his soul. That is for himself, heart, body, and this body, that is to say, the church. Feel me on this. It goes on to say, he has called one. He called himself one because of the unity of the spouse, of the faith, of the sacraments, and of the charity of the church. They go on to say in this Unam Sanctum, this is the tunic of the Lord, the seamless tunic, which was not rent, but which was cast by lot. Therefore, of the one and only church, there is one body, there is one head, not two heads like a monster, that is Christ and the vicar of Christ, Peter and the successor of Peter, since the Lord, speaking to Peter, himself told Peter, feed my sheep. And we don't need to go into all that. This is like, here you go. You want to know why they call you a sheep? Right? They say they believe that God called you a sheep. They say right here, the Lord, since the Lord speaking to Peter. Now, the Vatican and the popes, they all believe that they're from the bloodline of Peter, and that they get their authority through Peter, because Peter was proclaimed by God to do what? To feed his sheep. So Peter, it says, the Lord speaking to Peter himself said, feed my sheep. This is in John 21st chapter 21:17. Meaning my sheep in general. This is the Vatican. This is a Vatican document I'm reading. Meaning that my sheep in general, not these, nor those in particular. Whence we understand, this is the Vatican talking, that he, God, or whoever this God is, he entrusted all to him, Peter, that God gave Peter all power, all authority to feed his sheep. Therefore, if the Greeks or others should say that they are not confided to Peter and to his successors, they must confess not being the sheep of Christ. Since our Lord says in John, there is one sheepfold and one shepherd. So in other words, folks, the Unam Sanctum is telling you that if God told Peter and declared to Peter to feed his sheep on earth, Peter was given the authority by God to take care of God's children in his behalf. And if Peter dies and Peter's bloodline and his successors or his family take over, then they are by natural divine right are the shepherds of you. That they are the shepherd. And if you do not accept the successors of Peter, then you are not a sheep of Christ. You are not a part of Christ, because Christ told Peter that I need somebody to tend to my flock. Then you are admitting, if you don't believe the church, that you are not a part of Christ's flock. They have flip-flopped you. You're Satan. You're the children of Satan. You're sinful. You're evil. You're sin. You need to be, exercised, and demons need to be cast because you're not a part of the vicar of the church. And you have not, or nations or countries have not made themselves subservient to the church. Make sense? Understand this? Right? Let me just go back. It says, if the Greeks or others, that's you, that's us. If Greeks or others, if Greeks or every other human should say that they are not confided to Peter. Like, what if you don't like Peter? What if you thought that Peter, and Simon and Magnus, that they were studying black magic and witchcraft and studying Babylonian magic? You say, well, Peter, he actually skewed the word of the Bible. He actually skewed the word of God. He actually, blasphemed against God. There's so many things about Peter you can look into also. And him and Simon, they were fighting against each other and throwing spells like Harry Potter at each other, right? Summoning demons against each other. You'd be wondering all types of weird stuff was going on, right? But what if you didn't really confide in Peter? You're like, I don't really like that dude. Or if he was more into, this religion or that religion. Well, according to the Vatican, according to the Unam Sanctum, if they are not confided to Peter and to his successors, then they must confess not being the sheep of Christ. So just as much as you must confess that you are a follower of Christ, quote unquote, if you don't believe in the church, and you don't believe that we are directly successors from the bloodline of Peter or from the successor of Peter, then you might as well confess that you're not a sheep of Christ. Because according to them, the Lord said in John, there's only one sheepfold, and one shepherd. The shepherd is Peter, and the sheepfold is us. See? It says, now here's where it gets funny. It says, we are informed by the text of the Gospels that in this church, and this is why certain books of the Bible was removed, because certain Gospels were taken away, like the book of St. Barnabas, the book of St. Thomas. A lot of books was removed, and you start getting into the Conference of Nicaea, Alexander the Great, and you wonder why certain books of the Bible was left, because certain books of the Bible supported this notion. But however, there were certain other prophets or the disciples that didn't quite agree with the interpretation of Peter. Did you know that? that there were other disciples and other followers of Christ, other people that Christ actually spoke to outside of the disciples when Jesus traveled the world, because he didn't just live in, Rome and travel around Jerusalem. There's theories that Jesus might have went to India. They call him, some people refer to as Krishna. But either way, not every interpretation of Jesus's words was agreed upon. So the Conference of Nicaea was when these military moguls like Alexander the Great murdered off all the priests and all the people around the world who had a different version of what Jesus actually said, probably was the church. What is the church? Is the church a fixture, or is the church was a metaphorical meaning of your body? Well, some people didn't like the fact that the church might have been your body. They want the church to be Vatican, right? So we'll talk about that some other time as well. It says that in the church and in its powers are two swords. Namely, there's a spiritual sword and a temporal sword. For when the apostles say, behold, here are two swords, that is to say, in the church, since the apostles were speaking, the Lord did not reply that there were too many, but sufficient. Look how they're interpreting and they're fragmenting the words that were said. Well, the Lord didn't really mean that. He actually meant the Lord did not reply that there were too many, but sufficient. Certainly, it says, the ones who denies that the temporal sword is in the power of Peter. Peter is key in this whole Vatican thing. Peter has not listened well to the word of the Lord, commanding to Peter, put up thy sword into thy scabbard. Look how literal they're taking this. When the Lord told Peter to put his sword in his scabbard, the sword is materialistic. So the church, we have the sword, which means that we control the spiritual and the material life. We control the material sword to defend our sheep, and we control the spiritual sword to control our sheep. Because God told him to keep his sword in his holster. Why would God give Peter a holster? Because God wanted Peter to protect the sheep with the sword. So there is a physical element to Peter's role in tending to God's flock. Peter has to have a sword. You got to have a sword to protect God's children. And you have to be spiritually, packing, as we say in the streets. You got to be spiritually packing to protect God people. So we have the temporal and the material. They say right here, both, therefore, are in the power of the church. That is to say, the spiritual and the material sword. You see what is going? Am I making sense? Am I making? I want to stop because yesterday I was going. I want to always stop to make sure. Let me take a sip of the tea. Drink a sip of tea. If you guys are drinking tea with me this morning, let's get a sip and think about this for a minute. I got cranberry tea today. Cranberry tea makes me kind of mellow. So, are we cool on this? Is there understanding? Is there anybody lost and confused? Because, like I said, this is not a show. This is not a YouTube. This is study. This is education. True education, true facts, true knowledge. This is wisdom. So they're trying to show you in their own Unam Sanctum, written by Pope Boniface VIII, that Peter and their successors of Peter has control over the sheep, which is us. And that the reason why Peter and his successors are the one, like Noah, and the one boat is the church. The church is the boat. Noah is Peter. In today's language, the church is the boat and Peter is the Pope. Peter, according to their Lord, was given a sword and told to shield the sword in a scabbard, or, a holster, basically, to protect the sheep. So their Lord, wanted Peter to use a material device, a material weapon, to protect God's children on earth. So the Pope in the Vatican believes that they has to protect the flock with a sword. So let's make sure that's clear. Let's keep reading. I just want to just make sure you guys are not lost as I keep moving. Are in the power of the church, that is to say, the spiritual and the material sword. But the former is to be administered for the church, but the latter by the church. The former, the material sword, is to be administered for the church, but the latter by the church. Check this out. Look how they flipped it. The former, we're talking about the spiritual sword and the material sword. The former in the hands of priests, the latter by the hands of kings and soldiers, but at the will and sufferance of the priest. Look how they flipped that, folks. Are you listening? They said God gave us the power through Peter to control the temporal sword and the material sword. So that means that the controlling of the temporal sword can be administered by us, by the church. But because of our power, we're going to ordain the latter to be for the church. So for and by. For the church and by the church. So we're going to declare our prominence authority that this sword, we will use the sword to protect the church, for the church, and we will also give and declare that the material sword can be administered by the church. So the church, the Vatican, protects itself while also telling the world, we're going to allow you to be the sword through us. So in other words, we're going to keep our own troops, our own protection, our own sword, but we're going to put around the world priests, kings, soldiers who carry the sword. You feel me? So the armies of the nations, the armies of the world, the kings and what you see, right? World War I, World War II, all this war, armies, soldiers, troops, militaries, airplanes, nuclear bombs, atom bombs. This is their sword. They have allowed this by the church. Through the church's sufferance, they have given power to priests, kings, presidents, soldiers, police officers, judges, to keep a sword over the sheep. Are you listening? To keep a sword and protect the shepherds, the sheep. They're the shepherds to protect the sheep. The Vatican will handle the temporal sword of protecting the sheep. And the Vatican has relegated the responsibility of the shepherds of the world to protect the sheep's, the population, with the material sword. The material sword is your authority, your puppets, your psychopaths. Make sense? All in the name of what? The one alliance, whoever that Lord is that they're talking about. Because that Lord they talking about is not mine. I'm sorry, it ain't. I don't think it is. It doesn't feel right. Something in my spirit says that's not the creator that I believe in. Something's wrong. Something don't feel right. They took the words and twisted the words. And it's just not right. Check this out. Right here, this paragraph, as we move forward. They're talking about Dionysus. If you know, and you know Dionysus, but Dionysus is okay, we'll get into that one other day too. You start getting into mystical teachings and things like that. Dionysus. However, one sword ought to be subordinate to the other and temporal authority. So what they're saying is, even though there's a material and there's a temporal sword, the church, we're going to give ourselves the temporal sword. The temporal sword means the sword of the spiritual world, the sword of the spiritual energies. This is getting into magic, witchcraft, spirits, demons, exorcisms. I mean, this is getting into deep. But then that material sword, the same sword that Jesus told, or the Lord told Peter, right? This is how they flipping it. The material Lord we control too, but we don't want to control that material sword. So we're going to give that physical sword authority to priests, kings, churches, presidents, soldiers, armies, Department of Justices, Department of Defenses, all these different type of warlike nations. But the material sword is always subjugated and subordinate to the spiritual world. So even though we gave the powers to have a sword for the nations of the earth to protect these poor sheep, we who control the spiritual world, the Vatican, we still control that material sword because we the ones that gave you the authority to run your nations. We gave you the authority to carry these weapons, these guns, these tanks, these ships, and these airplanes, these submarines. We the ones that gave you the material sword. Now, at any moment, we could take that material sword back because the temporal spiritual power belongs to us. So nations, you belong to us. You don't have any autonomy. We gave you your power. We gave you that sword, those weapons, all that army, all them soldiers. It's us that gave you that power. So this is what they're saying in this statement right here, okay? However, one sword ought to be subordinate to the other and temporal authority, subject to spiritual power. And then they use a Bible quote to back it, right? Like they always do. For since the apostle said, Apostle Peter, this is what Peter said according to them. Peter said, there is no power except from God, and the things that are ordained of God. But they would not be ordained if one sword were not subordinate to the other, and if the inferior one, as it were not led upwards by the other. So here's this person, Peter, telling the world, and if this is really his words, but the Vatican is believing that it's to be his words, and they follow Peter because they are from the successor of Peter. That Peter is actually believing that in other words, guys, Peter believes in inequality. If you really want to go, you really want to go there. You want to go there? Let's go there. Peter doesn't believe in equality, folks. You should tell that to Black Lives Matter. You should tell that to, to the Democrats and the Vaticans who promote these democratic Luciferian agendas. That they tell you that they all about love and equality and equal justice and justice. Well, Peter is talking about there should be one subordinate to the other. That there should be one sword that should be inferior. One sword would not subordinate to the other, and if the inferior, he believes in inferiority. If he believes in inferiority, he believes in superiority. Let me say that again. If Peter, the church's golden boy, if Peter believes in inferiority, he also believes in superiority. We ain't even talking about the spiritual world. We're just talking about in this realm. And we're not going to get into, right, we're going to get into the mystical meanings behind a lot of this. I'm just kind of keeping it simple. right? I mean, like I said, Dionysus, we can kind of break that down. The church, we can call the church to, is it a physical church? Is it our bodies? Is it consciousness? Is it the pineal, right? Because the pineal is a cone and the cone is a church. You know, we can get deeper into that, but I'm just kind of just keeping it simple. I know you guys are just fuming with opinions about this, right? Because everybody, this is a topic that everybody knows about this stuff, right? Because everybody's awakened. But this fundamental part is very key, because this fundamental information, or fundamental entry level knowledge of wakening up, is the most important, because this is what caused the most division, and this is what caused the most uh, people who you talk to. Like I, for example, as I take a little break here, there's people in my life that I know that I used to teach, young guys that used to be under my little school of thought. And I've been teaching them guys since they were 12, man. They'd come over my apartment or hang out at the house, and we'll cut the TV off, cut the video games off, and things that we were doing. And we would have sessions, and I would talk and ask them questions. And these are young dudes. I used to babysit a lot of kids, babysit my nephews and babysit, friends, and friends would be like, yo, can they, so and so come over and hang out with you fellas and stuff. I'm like, all right, sure. And as they got older, they started taking on different beliefs, and I always wonder, like, well, why did you go there? Like how did you end up there when I taught you this, or we covered that? And what happened with a lot of these guys is that they 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 either took the information too literal, or they try to fit a hexagon inside of a circle. So they just grinded it, they just pushed it through and forced it through until it fit. And they say, see, it fits. And you're like, well, yeah, but it was never meant to, it didn't fit. You could tell if it's right because it would gel naturally, it would fit naturally. If you had to grind it through that peg hole, or that peg to fit it through, then that's not natural. You made it fit through force. You forced the issue. You forced the knowledge. You forced the information. You took the information and forced it into you a certain way to fit your narrative on whatever you was going to do. If you want to talk about racist, if you want to talk about black supremacy, you want to talk about white supremacy. If you talk about white supremacy, this statement that I got highlighted, let me highlight it, right? This entire statement from Peter, if you want to get into the racist logic from a white perspective, could be used, or could have been used, for imperialism. You see how bad this can be, that if you're not firm in foundation and understanding of what we're dealing with, that you can easily become a leader like Hitler, or a leader like Idi Amin. You can easily become a Malcolm X, or a Robert Byrd, leader of the Ku Klux Klan, one of the leaders or whatnot. You can easily become that. You could take the Bible and flip on the Bible a billion different ways to be Jim Jones. Have people drinking cyanide. So if this verse that tells that Peter is stating that there is no power except from God, and that the things that are ordained of God, but they would not be ordained if one sword would not subordinate to the other, and if the inferior one, as it were, would not led upwards by the other. That if it wasn't for your slave owner, it has to be a slave owner and a slave. It has to be somebody that's subordinate to the other. It has to be an inferior person and a superior person. There has to be an inferior sword and a superior sword. There has to be an army or a nation of soldiers that has to be stronger than the other nations. There has to be a sword that is subordinate to the other sword. The Vatican decided to take that superior logic and apply it to their own people by saying, okay, we're the superior ones because we have the temporal sword. And because we have the temporal sword, We are superior than the armies that have the material sword. They are subordinate to us. So could you flip that and say, well, because we are superior to the nations, we are also worthy to, I don't know, to survive if the world should end? Because we should get the bread first. We should get the water first. We should get the blessings first. And the people get it later. That if the world was going to die from a pandemic, Bill Gates, Bill Gates, by natural law or divine law, we get dibs on that first, or we would destroy him. But you could take that concept and apply it to nations, to United States, to government, saying, "Hey, Libya, you who sit on the League of Nations, you who sit here in the United Nations, we, the Bilderberg Group, we are superior than you. So you sit back and shut up. As above, so below. It all stacks. They all mimic each other, some way, shape, or form. Right? They say, for according to the blessed Dionysus, and I'm not even going to get into this. That's a whole nother conversation. It is a law of divinity. I just said divine law, a law of divinity, that the lowest things reach the highest place by an intermediary. Think about that, folks. They actually are telling you that you are low, that you are low, that we are low, and that in order for us to reach the high, because we are so pitiful and so low, first of all, how did that go from us being sheeps of Christ to them calling us low? Being a sheep of Christ doesn't mean you're low. That means you're love. You're the babies. You're children. You're his beautiful little kids, right? Like, you don't look at your 12-year-old, 11-year-old son and say, oh, because you're the youngest, you're pitiful, you're low, you're nothing. No, you're beautiful. You're innocent. You're the best. You're the baby. We care for you. We love you, and we're gonna do whatever we can. They're telling you you're low. You're not good. You're not great. You're not special. That you're flawed. You're a problem. You're horrible. And in order to get to that great state, or to that great person that you should be, even though you were already born that great person and those great gifts was already given to you, that you need an intermediary. And that intermediary is who? The church. The ones who control the swords, the sword, and your government, who through the subservience to the Vatican were given the material sword. So your government, your politicians, your puppets, your psychopaths, the ones that rape little women and men, little boys, they are your intermediary. They create the laws because you don't know how to live your life correctly. They write your laws because you are so horrible, stupid, low. You are the lowest scum of the universe. And therefore we, your intermediary, and those who were given authority over you by the Vatican, it is us who are your intermediary to help you get to God, to get to the Creator, to be better. We do that for you. You don't do it for yourself because you don't understand it, because you are too pitiful. Does that make sense? Any objections to what I'm saying? Because I don't want to be going forward. I don't want to continue forward. If you guys are, oh man, I don't agree with that. Why is here? This is not me. This is not me talking. This is their doctrine, the Unam Sanctum. And why? You want to know who they is? I told you the who. You want to know why they are doing this? through the synagogue of Satan, and here you go. See how they build their case? They went from Noah and the flood talking about a boat. They then took that to Peter, a church. See how they compared it? They then broke that down to a sword. They then took every little verse that the Lord, quote unquote, told Peter and took that and interpreted it to fit their own narrative. They took the hexagon and squished it through the circle. Remember I told you they didn't force it through to fit their narrative. That the church had only one pilot, right? Isn't that what it said? One pilot. The one pilot was the shepherd. Well, Noah was the shepherd because Noah was the pilot of the boat. And God chose Noah to be the pilot of the boat. Well, later down the line, God chose Peter to be the pilot of the boat. The pilot of the boat. Right? The boat is the church. So Peter is the pilot of the church. And the successors of Peter, after Peter dies and he's long gone, continue to control and pilot the boat. The boat is the church. The church is you. And Peter, through the Lord, quote unquote, needed to protect the boat. Because, there's a bunch of bad guys out there who's going to try to destroy the boat. So God gave Peter a sword to protect the boat from the evil people. So we, the Vatican, has a sword to protect the boat. And we also gave swords to the nations to protect the people on the boat. But here's how what they didn't tell you, and what they took out of this logic. What about the successors of Noah? They're so concerned about Peter and comparing Peter to Noah and the boat to the church. But what they didn't talk about in the Unam Sanctum was if Peter's successor has the authority over the sheep, then what happens to Noah and his successors? Because Noah was the first Peter, if you really want to flip it. Wasn't Noah the first Peter? Because he was the one truly chosen by the Creator or God or Lord, whatever you want to call it, because he was the first pilot of the boat of the church. Not Peter, maybe it was Noah. So who are the bloodline of Noah? Who are the children of Noah? I wonder if there's two bloodline families that we're talking about here. Are we talking about the bloodline of Noah and the children of Noah? And are we talking about the bloodline of Peter and the children of Peter? I wonder, as I think and I ponder during this session. But hold on to your hats. It gets even more interesting in today's session. And I may have to break this up to either do tonight or do later today, because I don't want to overwhelm you guys, because this is going to get real good. So think about that as we stop. Take a little brief intermission and drink my little cranberry tea. Any questions? Any confusion? And do I need to, and then don't be afraid to say that you're kind of lost. I mean, that's one thing about wisdom, is never be afraid to say that you need help. Never be afraid to say that you don't understand something or that you're not sure. It could be not you, it could be me. I could be the problem. It could be the way that I'm explaining it, or maybe I'm explaining it too complex, or maybe too comical. So, let me know if you guys are not understanding what I'm saying, and I can always try to dial it down a bit or step it up a notch. Right? Yeah. Mike Jones, you're 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 going a little deeper, with the boat and the rib cage. So that's why I said, like, you are the church. So the boat is you. You are the boat. You're the boat. You're the boat. The boat, I'll give you a tip. The boat, and I said this earlier before we continue. The boat was over 500 something feet long, right? Because they said it was about 300 cubits. Do you know that that the word the number three, all right, the 3 or the 30 or the 33 or the 300 cubits, they hijacked that number, turned into like 13 and 33, Freemasons, all that good stuff. But the 33 or the number 3 or the triune 30, all these different numbers, is that the body is also made up in those same numbers. You know, your bones, your elbow from your wrist, your armpit to the middle of to your solar plexus. There is very spiritual ramifications behind the size of the boat, Noah's boat. And if you really go deeper in logic and deeper in research, and you understand the shape of the boat, the dimensions of the boat, and then how that relates to man's anatomy, it'll take your concept of the Bible to a whole nother level. It'll take your reading of the story of Noah to a whole nother level. And this is where true wisdom comes in at, and divine inspiration. Exactly, Tyler. You know, you start getting into Solomon's type wisdom, and Solomon, be careful with the teachings of Solomon, because Solomon, he went both ways. In some cases he kind of went up and down. So, be careful. A lot of people believe that Solomon was great and God blessed him and with wisdom. And then some books shows you that Solomon also lost God's favor, and the spirit of God was removed from Solomon because of his you know some people say because of his dabbling in different arts. So let's take a little brief intermission. But the tea that I'm drinking is cranberry tea, actually. It is a real like cranberry type blend. Yesterday when I was talking to you guys, I was drinking green tea with matcha. So I had that, and then today is cranberry tea. So exactly, Solomon fell. Yep, he fell twice. See, you guys are there. You guys know. You guys understand what I'm doing and the things that I say. You guys, so I appreciate you, Mike Jones and Tyler. You guys know. You guys are there, man. It's just there are some obviously things that you guys may know that I may not know, and vice versa. So is this a YouTube show? I doubt it. It doesn't feel like a show. This is much deeper. This is education. I'm filling you up with something, right? All right, so let's continue. We took our little intermission. So this intermediary and this whole concepts of an intermediary. What is an intermediary? Intermediary is really what they refer to as a vicegerent, right? A vicegerent. A vicegerent, by definition, is a person exercising delegated power on behalf or a sovereign or ruler. A person regarded as an earthly representative of God or a god, especially the Pope. Listen, let me read that again. A vicegerent is a person regarded as an earthly representative of God or a god So wait a minute, especially the they say especially the Pope. This is coming from Google. So Google gonna shoot it straight. Google will shoot it straight and tell you the facts. Like, especially the Pope. But this is making sense now, right? Like they don't cut no corners in telling you who's controlling you, who's trying to be your god, or who is a representation of what you think is God, especially the Pope. That's what they say. So now we're gonna go into some much interesting topic that a lot of you guys probably would love to hear me talk about, and maybe love to hear me touch on this, and I touch on it often and maybe a little bit, but in this conversation, it only makes it right. So this bloodline family, or this group of people who believe that they are successors to have dominion over you through the power given to them by their Lord, And one can only assume from the information yesterday that their Lord is Satan or Lucifer of this pleroma, this material world. And that through the one alliance of their Lord, they create one church, one priest, one boat, one sword, one world order, one religion. Individuality is completely removed. Your uniqueness is removed. They don't want you to be different, multi-expressional. You have to be one because they have one boat. Noah didn't have 16,000 boats. God gave him one boat. But what they won't remind you is that in this whole analogy, that inside that boat was multiple different species, multiple different creatures, multiple different expressions of the source. Even the planks of wood look different that Noah used to hammer that boat together. Each plank had a uniqueness about it, had a particular size, a particular weight, maybe a particular color, maybe a particular types of cracks inside the wood. It was all unique expressions of wood, as well as the animals that quote unquote inhabited the boat. As the rain and the deluge, the flood fell down upon earth, the raindrops hit the water, the oceans at different levels, different frequencies, different spacings, different, speeds, and the rain fell at different intervals, showing many different expressions of the source. But they don't tell you that. They tell you everything was just one, not showing you the uniqueness of the individual, of the individuality that resides in us as individuals and nature. They don't cover that. They want you to think that everything was communist, everything was socialist, everything was one community. And hence they built towers of Babel to try to reach God, everybody. But, we have multiple languages now, individuality. So I just wanted to say that. So in this alliance, there lies a trust, a certain trust. And that trust, one can refer to as the Lucis trust or the Lucius trust. Lucius means light, light means Lucifer, the Lucifer trust. That this trust is a pact between all of them, that they, including your governments, have trust in the vicars or the intermediaries to continue to work together towards that one goal. That one goal like climate change, that one goal like the fourth industrial revolution, that one goal like sustainable development, that one goal like Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and Agenda 45, and all of the agenda. That's what it's all about. That trust. So the Lucis trust, originally known as the Lucifer trust. Exactly, Dana. Exactly. Mike Jones. I'm just kind of highlighting you guys' comment, etc. So we can look at this from an energy, currency, money, currency, or we can look at this as literal as you want. And even if you read it like I'm doing now, I'm kind of just reading it pure in basic for you guys, or simple as they're reading it as it's written, it still leads you to the same foundation that we talked about yesterday. Right? The interpretation of this information. But you have to lock this in. You have to understand this. So that when we progress in research, we progress in this world and these events that will happen in the future, you now have a strong foundation. And I don't care what PSYOP, what government, what Donald Trump shows and pop his face on screen and try to act like he wants you to get his vote and you give him your vote. you know that from the top down, that doesn't matter. It never did. This is all a game to get you to involuntarily sign yourself up a part of the Lucifer Trust, a part of the control organism mechanism. Am I right? Just want to show you that we're not. I mean, this is, I'm just kind of going, through this. But the next thing I want to show you is just, just some little images here. But for those who may not know this, here's your Vatican and your symbols. How the Vatican and Washington D.C., they look very similar. You obviously got the monuments. These symbols are material, obviously, but they provide energetic. You talk about that temporal sword. We talked about that temporal, and then we talked about the physical sword. The physical sword is the armies and the soldiers and your politicians and the police. Your temporal sword that the Vatican controls is these symbols, because they have spiritual energies that do a lot of different things. One of those things is keep you subservient, just like the physical sword do. So they put a gun to your head and tell you that you a sheep, get back in your cage. And they also bind you with a spiritual sword telling you, sheep, get back in your cage. So they have popped up these symbols around the earth with many different energies and many different expressions that give them esoteric and mystical powers during certain times of the year, certain times of the equinoxes, certain times of the celestial constellations and their movements, that provide them spiritual power to be able to do things that most men probably wouldn't believe if they seen it with their own eyes. The Vatican and the White House share the dome shape. The dome shape is what they refer to as a tiara. A tiara or a tria or a triune is the symbology of a tiara because it's called the three-headed crown. It is a crown that has three rows to it, basically. So when you see the Vatican and the dome of the Vatican, you're looking at, or you see these buildings that look very similar, like Capitol Hill, right? We talked about Capitol Hill. You see the Vatican, right? There is a three-layered or three-leveled crown or tiara going into the whole concept of the spiritual church, the pilot or the Peter or the Pope. And then your final is the sword, which will be your government or your military. That is your triune. The city of London, Washington, Vatican. Or simply your religion, as we see in this image here. Religion, your finance, and your military. Your spiritual, your bank. So it all mimics each other. Your military. Your church, your pilot, and the sword. Your church, your pope, and its military. The sheep is nowhere in that triune. Just the sheep is nowhere in that. So all these symbols, whether they're pyramids or cubes and circles and hexagons and all these different things, this is how they exert spiritual dominance over you, along with their physical sword over you. Right? As we kind of look here, these symbols are part of the temporal spiritual world power that the pilot or the Pope or the Peter or the Noah knows through his qubits, whether it's 300 cubits or 50 cubits or the geometrics or the great uh, you know, you can get into Trismegistus or Trismegistus, get into symbols and shapes, and then you start getting into Kabbalah, and you start understanding those. And this is where divine law controls the material law in the material world. Now this is just me going, a little deeper, is how do the vicar of Christ or the successors of Peter control nations once they given them the ability to rule a nation with the sword? How can the Pope or the Vatican keep nations under control if in fact nations try to get out of line, even though they're subordinate to the church? Because the church, remember, the church gave them the material sword. They are Peter. They are the successors of Peter. So the power that's given to the nations to control the sheep was given to them by the Vatican through the Unam Sanctum. So if the church controls a nation, what if a nation gets out of line? What if a nation decides that, hey, Vatican, we don't like you. We don't want you, don't control us no more. Well, one of the powers that they have is through the spiritual world by putting hexes and using buildings and symbols to bind these nations to that spiritual energy. So that we use Washington, D.C., for example, that Washington, D.C. is literally under a Vatican spell. That even if they try to break away, that the power of the spell put over this nation or put over this people or put over this particular Washington, D.C. area is so powerful that whoever is elected are now under the spiritual possession of the intermediaries. And now they must do thy bidding, thy will of the Peter. Let's say the Peter. Or the Pope. Or the Noah. Or the Pilate. Or the vicar. Or the intermediary. Or the priest. And as we speaking about priest, they have decided to put a priest, a archbishop, not an archangel or archdemon. Well, you can look at it like that, depending on all the different pedophilia that's been going on inside the Vatican Church and the priests. They've placed priests over different parts of each state or each symbol has a archpriest or archdiocese controlling that region. And that archdiocese or that archpriest or arch sorcerer, if you really want to go there, that arch sorcerer reports to the Vatican through the Lucis Trust, through the One Alliance, to ensure that the nations are moving towards the overall plan of total totalitarian, which is centralized power, centralized government, one world government, globalization, towards a one world Luciferian, Lucius world, where individuality is snatched away and herd mentality, sheep mentality is encouraged. So now you see the spiritual energy that they are using to keep nations in line is by orchestrating symbols in monument structures in and around you, in and around your country, that has energetic energy behind it through, different zodiacs, and we can go deeper with that one day. Spell casting, holidays, money manipulation, and all these different things, media, agriculture. We can get into corporations, right? All these symbols you see built around you is nothing but legionnaires. How do I? That's the best word I can think of right now. Legionnaires, a demon and his legionnaires. So Satan or Lucifer has orchestrated his temples and his perversion of the symbols in and around you, or around your elected officials, to put them under demonic or satanic possession in order for them to control and to do the bidding of their Lord, whoever that is, or whatever that is. And we actually know what that is, right? Is that clear? Mike Jones dropping Zachary K. Hubbard quote. Dana says the fear element is the most powerful spell. But the fear, but then too, Dana, is the fear put over on us, or is the fear put on the elected? Is the spell cast on us, or is the spell cast on those who we have placed in power? Justin Trudeau doesn't even is not even acting like a human with the things that he's saying and the way that he is acting. And I'm sure they thought the same way about Hitler when they saw the things that Hitler was doing. You couldn't believe that a human can say these things about another human. That when you are electing these officials, and these officials are elected and become Senate or congressmen under the fasci and the owl and the eagle and God knows what else, the cube, the pentagram, that they are under a Vatican spell. Why do you think I did a video years ago when I was on YouTube, showed you all the different presidents of the world kissing the hands of Pope John Paul? Why are they always, it's like going on prom. They always, meeting the Pope, and like a great ball, like a great dance, because the Pope is blessing them, quote unquote. So the fear, yeah, they project that onto us. They themselves are under the spell, not you. They try to put you in that spell. They try to hex you to, misery loves company, right? Now, we can go a little deeper. There is research that I've done, and rumors and experiments that I've done growing up, that in certain communities, there are symbols drawn to put those communities into hexes. That if you have a certain liquor store in your community, or there are cities, especially Democrat cities, that are riddled with crime and murder and all types of stuff going on, that in those communities there are symbols drawn underneath or in the sewers of those cities. This is what I heard, and I actually seen images that actually blew my mind years ago. That hypothetically, the south side of Chicago, that somewhere on the south side of Chicago, there is a hex or a seance, a center, a satanic cathedral, something where these people are drawing symbols underneath the city streets, maybe in abandoned buildings, that are putting spells and casting demonic spirits and energies on large areas of the population. without the public knowing. So just imagine what they're doing in Washington, D.C., and how they're controlling the elected through the power of the temporal spiritual world, that they're also going into small communities and placing hidden symbols in your community that is putting your city and putting you under a spell of fear or a spell of laziness, gluttony, lust. God knows that they are actually doing that, that your local alderman, your local mayor, who is built on the same structure of this hierarchy, which they get their design from the different spheres, the seven fallen realms, and the 36 um they refer to as the 36 chambers or the 36 levels, the 36 realms or whatnot. You can get it, it's a little bit deeper stuff here. Yeah. Lady Gaga, she said Lady Gaga has an album cover recreating the gated subway sewer tunnel in the shape of a rabbit. You'd be surprised what they're doing in your community, or you at home watching TV. And that energy and frequency is creating a how do I say this without sounding like out there? Like, they're creating a unseen shape, because shapes are music and frequency. You start getting into the triune or the triumvates and the dia the diatonics. You start getting into diatones and diatonics, and you understand the diatrine and the different sounds of music. You watching a commercial, and that commercial, though it has that nice catchy song or that nice catchy jingle, could be drawing a energetic hexagon in your home, that when you listen to that certain song, you're ready to go fight, ready to go beat somebody up, you're ready to go smoke some dope or some fentanyl. This music puts you in a trance like state, or that commercial entice you to go grab some food, or it makes you think about something that you wasn't thinking about before. McDonald's and Burger King, they early in the morning, they're cooking. I heard at McDonald's early in the morning, they're not cooking any food. They just putting the smell of food in the air to make you come there. And this is what they're doing. They're messing with your senses. That just like your tastes, your five senses, that those are related to the senses of air, water, earth, fire, wind. And they play into these energies to affect you at certain times of the day, certain times of the year, certain times of the night. They're affecting and they're playing with you like the fiddler. This is the whole concept of what Karl Marx mentioned yesterday. The fiddler. The fiddler is what? He's playing the strings. I'm strumming the strings. That Satan, Lucifer, is the fiddler, giving these people the tools to manipulate you through frequency, through energy, through symbols, through shapes, through numbers. And they use their people, their synagogue, to continue to manipulate you, to keep you in subservience to them. The sword is not to protect you against evil. The sword is to keep you from realizing who they are. And if you realize who they are, like the people in Canada, then they will use the sword against you. That very same sword that Lord told Peter to put in his scabbard. That sword is supposed to be drawn against Satan and Lucifer. No, Satan and Lucifer is the Lord, their Lord. And that sword is drawn against you, the children of Christ, the true body of Christ. Feel me? Feel me on this as I take a sip of tea. This is a good stream, isn't it? So, quite naturally, we talked about this trust, and then we kind of just showed you the symbol. So when you see that dome, you know what that dome is. That dome is a tiara or a crown, a three-headed crown. That's why I stacked 3 times, and that three-headed crown just symbolizes the 3 and the true 3 in their logic. And then the symbols and how they use these symbols around these nations, Washington, D.C., London, probably the prime minister's buildings in Canada and all over the world. to put spells over the electricity, the elected, to control them through an electrical unseen energy. This is how they keep nations in line when nations don't remember who is their boss, which is the power of the church. So now, quite naturally, it's only right to cover the most interesting topic, the Jesuit. What is a Jesuit? The Jesuits are referred to as God's soldiers or God's Marines. Can you believe that? That, we got our local army. We have our United States Marine Corps, our Army, our Navy, and all these different armies around the world going to war with each other, dropping bombs on each other, false flagging each other like America's doing with Ukraine and Russia, creating false flags and trying to blame it on Russia. Well, these people have their own army. And Mike, you should left the charger plugged in, man. It's bad planning. Let me stop. All right, man, do what you got to do. Come back to the session. And they have their own army. They have their own army to fight off the other armies if those armies don't do what the church says. You know what that army is called? It's called God's army, aka the Jesuits. Let me say that again, so you need to know this. How do the Vatican enforce their reign over these nations who have nuclear weapons and bombs? And, couldn't they all just join together and just blow up the Vatican? And there you go. We're free. No, the Vatican's thought long, hard, and 20,000 steps ahead. So this spiritual Noah or Peter has built a boat to protect its sheep or to control its sheep. But they didn't tell you was inside that boat was an army of assassins that's willing to jump out the back of the boat and murder anybody that tries to attack the boat, including those inside the boat who didn't, realize they need to sit down and shut up and just eat your food inside the boat. There's an army inside the boat that's willing to kill everybody if they don't listen to Noah, who's inside the boat. So then you start to say, well, dang, Noah doesn't come off to be so cool, and Peter doesn't look like he's so nice. The Vatican, the priests, and the popes don't appear to be so nice if they got a group of people, a army of God, a God's army or Lord's army that's willing to go to war with anybody that, don't do what the Pope and what the church says. That army is called the Jesuit or the Society of Jesus. All right, as I just kind of show you here, call it God's Marines. God's Marines is the Jesuits. That's their nickname. Society of Jesus. The Jesuits, God's Marines. The creator of this God's Marine or the Jesuit was a man by Ignatius, or Ignatius, however you want to pronounce it. Ignatius, believe it or not, was no perfect man. Now, isn't that something? Ignatius or Ignatius, however you pronounce it, he was not a Noah. Okay. He was a murderer. He was a general. War. Went to war, fought in the war, whether it's the Crusades or whatnot. And after he had his war, he kind of had a revelation, like they all, right? Had a revelation. And he decided to create a secret society or a order called the Society of Jesus, known as the Jesuits. I'm not going to cover much about this particular guy, even though he is the owner and the founder of the Jesuit Society. When you hear people talk about the Jesuits all the time. So when you see what I'm trying to show you guys is now I'm tooling you guys up how to battle even those people who always talk about they. Do you even know who they is? Just like saying they because you just want to be a part of the conscious community, the conscious awakening. Well, let's examine the they. Ignatius created the Jesuits, the Society of Jesus. which shows loyalty to what? The Lucifer trust. The Unam Sanctum was written long before Ignatius, long before him. Just remember that. So the creed and the foundation of this Luciferian doctrine goes far beyond the inception of the Jesuit that we talked about, the Jesuit that we talk about today. Not to say that they didn't exist, but what we know today as the Jesuit was started by Ignatius. However, there's something about Ignatius and what he promoted that was extremely strange. He promoted something referred to as the 13th rule. Say the 13th rule. What? Yeah, look it up. The 13th rule from the Jesuits. Okay. You go back and you tell your Jesuit truthers who like to talk about the Jesuits, ask them if they know what the 13th rule talked about. That was many other things, other rules that he written inside the Jesuit doctrine, which controls the Vatican through the arm of the Black Pope or the Black Society. You have a white society and a Black society through the Black Society, but let's just focus primarily on the 13th rule. The 13th rule mentions that whatever is white or whatever is declared good or white by the church, if the church says that it's black, it's black. Whatever the church says that's good is good, and whatever they declare is evil is evil. If they declare evil is good, then evil is good. That's what the 13th rule teaches from Ignatius, who was the founder of the Jesuits, as I share this out here. Okay. Let's click on here. Thinking with the church. Okay. It says right here, St. Ignatius, if we wish to proceed securely in all things, we must hold fast to the following principle. What seems to me white, I will believe black if the hierarchical church so defines. You talk about witchcraft. You talk about your symbols. You talk about your perversion. The Jesuit army believes in that statement alone, in the 13th root of the Jesuit, that if the church declares something evil to be good, or something black to be white, or in other words, this is getting into the spiritual world, duality, that they have the subordinate responsibility and or authority ordained through the church to believe it and to accept it. That if the hierarchical order of the church believes and defines that black is white, they must believe it and follow it. I'll break it down even more scary. If they declare Lucifer as God and God as Lucifer, they will believe in whatever the church defines. St. Ignatius, the founder of the Society of Jesus, aka the Jesuits. Think about that for a second as we take a tea break. That is called the 13th rule of the Jesuits, for those who didn't know. You with me? Still with me? Your brain's on overload today? You've been sleeping all your life. Now it's time to wake up. The Jesuits, obviously, there was civil wars, but World War I, World War II, but predominantly let's focus on World War II. As I just let me just go back to let's go back to Saint Ignatius. Here, hold on real quick. I spelled his name wrong. Yeah. All right. So I want to just have this up while I'm talking. So this is Ignatius, the founder of the Jesuit. Now, these Jesuits didn't always get along, obviously. The bloodline families, even though they all follow the one alliance, they all fight, they infight, and they battle each other and, get mad because that bloodline family control the banks, but they want to control the bank, but they only control agriculture. So they'll fight with each other, agriculture versus banks, because banks are taxing the agriculture industry, or the pharmaceutical industry is mad because, so they all fight against each other. They're all in-house fighting. Little spoiled demonic children fighting against each other. So the Jesuits fought against the church. There was a civil war between the Jesuits and the church. In World War II, the Jesuits financed, backed both sides of the wars. They told Hitler to invade Russia and told Russia to destroy Germany, and they just pitted, each other against each other, because it all leads to one alliance, eventually getting rid of nations and bringing Satan's kingdom on earth, which is the true God that they believe in. The Jesuits betrayed each other. The church betrayed each other. People was killed and murdered. Priests was murdered. Kings was murdered. Jesuits was murdered. And many factions or many groups broke off from the Jesuits, and then eventually those factions came back together and pretty much put their differences aside. There was betrayal against Hitler, who was paid off by Jesuits and the Vatican Church as they funded World War II. And there were factions of the Jesuits that paid Joseph Stalin and paid off Russia and the Soviet Union, or aka Soviet Union, during World War II. And obviously there were Jesuits that backed and paid and secretly met with America, Canada, and I believe Australia. I got to remember Australia. So those are key. Once the Civil War was finished, they created, and those factions of the Jesuits remained. They were still under the Jesuit army, and they still was pretty much, cool with each other, even though a lot of them kind of betrayed each other. And they established their plan to never fight with each other again, and always stay true to the goal and their servitude through the Lucifer's Trust to their Lord Lucifer, or Satan. And these Jesuits, who was once at war with each other because they betrayed each other for various reasons through wars, agreed that any war that they create or any war that they ferment will always be towards the plan of a one world government. That was them coming together, the Jesuits, was the beginning and the true public revealing of the agenda and the concept that these truthers refer today as the New World Order. The old world order, or the old guard, was the old Jesuits that still remained in the Vatican, in England, the ones that was always the original OGs, so to speak. We call them the original gangsters. But as World War II spread its wings across nations as they fought against each other, many different Jesuit members did back deals with different nations. Some did back deals with America, some did back deals with, Australia, some did back deals with Russia, back deals with, and the one who was responsible for these deals, or the ones that was responsible for betraying Germany, or the German general, I believe it was Himmler, was a Jesuit. But the Jesuit also paid Himmler to invade Germany. Germany got their asses kicked, lost the war, and Himmler turned around and had one of the Jesuits, the main Jesuit, uh, assassinated or killed. That created the Civil War. Once that Civil War was done and everything was resolved, the old heads, the original gangsters of the Jesuit, they were kind of like, all right, cool, we'll create a peace treaty. But the newer Jesuit orders around the world, like Russia, United States, Australia, some of those other Jesuits, they refer to themselves as the new order. So you had the old order and the new order. Those new order and old order were both Jesuits, but just, they were beefing with each other. So they came together and agreed to promote a new world order under the auspice of the old world order Jesuit. And that allowed them to take control of the church and use the church in the background, or in the black side of the chessboard, to control the world and the finance and the banking systems, etc., through the arm of the Jesuit, using the church to promote the one world plan of Lucifer through the Society of Jesus, quote unquote. Make sense? The faction of the New World Order Jesuits, the new boys, the new breeds of the Jesuits, not the old ones who's, kind of like, old school, older guys or older women. This new groups of Jesuits who joined together and they squashed their civil war were referred to as the Illuminati. Was referred to the Illuminati. So the Jesuit and the Illuminati they're one and the same in a sense, but they're two different entities, two different groups. The Jesuit is the old, even though they're all Jesuits. The Jesuit is the old, but the Illuminati is a Jesuit, but it's the new. But the new and the old join hands and stop fighting with each other, and decided to have a peace treaty to bring forth the plan, the business plan, to bring about Lucifer's agenda on earth. The founder, or we're gonna get into like Adam Westphal of the Illuminati, but the founder of the Jesuit, of the new breeds of Jesuits, was a man by the name of Edmund Walsh. He was the founder of the American priest Jesuit version on this side of the continent, or this side of the planet. Let me just share that out for you. We talked about Ignatius being the true founder of the Jesuit. You have him here. Name is Edmund Walsh. Society of Jesus founder here in America. A part of that new breed, that new world order breed. The American Jesuit Catholic priests. The new breed, the new boys. The ones that when that Civil War kicked off, they was the ones who was, fighting the old Jesuits. Exactly. But the old Jesuits and the new Jesuits joined forces. So you remember that. So the Jesuits, when they when they created their civil war, and everybody was fighting against each other because they betrayed each other, and they forgot again. They lost sight of their uh, vision, the vision that pact or that agreement that they had never go to war with each other again. That, hey, look, man, we can't. We're working for Satan. We can't. We can't be betraying each other like we did in World War II. Now, I know you like Germany, and I know you liked it Russia, but come on, man, we all Jesuits, man. We're gonna pay both of them. We gotta pick a side. We can't be back dealing with Hitler and then turn around and do a back deal with Stalin, and then Stalin beats Hitler. But Himmler, he was upset because he thought he was cool with the Jesuits. So he felt betrayed. So he murdered the Jesuits. Like, dude, you guys betrayed Germany, which is the reason why Germany lost the war. Germany didn't lose the war because of America. Germany lose the war because they were betrayed by the Catholic Vatican system. They thought that they were going to come out as the powerful nation, and the one that was going to control the military arm, or be the military arm for the Vatican. Instead, it was given to America and Russia, not Germany. So Germany was betrayed after they was sworn by the Vatican Jesuit priests that they would surely come out on top during World War II. But Germany was so bitter that when they lost World War II because they got their butts kicked by the Russians, they decided to go and murder the Jesuit priests who promised them victory. And that kicked off the Civil War, because it was like it got exposed that the Jesuits were turning on each other. So they all came together. They had that Civil War. They decided to come together. And when they came together, they created something called this, as I share, called Sollicitudo Hominum Ecclesiarium, or Ecclesiarium. And I'm not going to read this because it's the original document, or written. This document was the official public declaration of the Illuminati, of the New World Order, of the Jesuit agenda. This is what the pact they all used to merge the old Jesuit order with the New World Jesuit order. And this is the doc. Not the official doc, but obviously the PDF of the doc, or whatever. It's written in a different language, but I'm sure you can find the interpretation of it. But this lays out all the rules and what they will not do, and how they pretty much agreed that, hey, man, we all about that one plan. And whatever nation that is, about our one plan, we're cool with them. But we would never turn on each other. We would never fight each other again. And no more civil war, man. We gotta bring Lucifer's plan on earth, man. And we don't have time to be fighting with each other. And when they created this ecclesiarium document, legal binding agreement, like the Lucis Trust, they created houses to be in charge of the Jesuit affairs, to make sure that that the Jesuit order is fulfilled and under shared control and shared responsibility, so that they never have to worry about betraying each other again within the Jesuit society. They created houses upon houses upon houses inside of houses, which mimics the pyramid scheme. The three houses was, number one, the house of Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha. It's a royal house. And under this royal house, or under a house, there's many families. There's the head of the house, the king, or the ruler, or the dynasty, the family matriarch or patriarch, who through incest, through choosing of politicians that they think are attractive, will sleep and have children and babies. You guys know how reproduction work. And they would create their house. And that house will be responsible for a certain amount of systems that control the world. House of Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha is the name of the first Jesuit house that runs the world. The second Jesuit house, this is your triune, is the House of Lafayette, or in other languages, Lafayette. That is the second Jesuit house. I'll give you the names: House of Coburg, Gotha, to House of Lafayette. And under this house, okay, they are controlling certain other institutions and systems of the world under the Jesuit family plan. The third family that you all will definitely love is your House of Rothschild. Is the third house of the Jesuit. And in these three houses, from the Jesuit arm, they rule and run the different isms and your different systems of the world. Your capitalism and your communism or socialism, or your Marxism, fascism, are all ran out of these three houses behind the scenes of the Vatican Church. That regardless if they are Hitler versus America, or socialist versus capitalism, that regardless of the country, even though those countries may go to war with each other and destroy each other, like Russia, Ukraine, the United States now, that it does not matter to the houses that runs the show, because it's destroying nation sovereignty and creating war and pushing that agenda is all that matters. So despite who they may favor and love, and they have no allegiance to America, to Ukraine, nor Russia. They can care less who wins, as long as somebody wins. They can care who dies, as long as somebody dies. They can care what nation get destroyed, as long as some nation do get destroyed. Make sense? So this family, these three houses made up of thousands and thousands of bloodline family members. You know, you got your Queen Elizabeths and your this and that, and House of Coburg, right? Got so many people. You now have a secret arm controlling the church. That when your popes are elected, or popes are selected to push the agenda of Lucifer, they are ordained by the three houses that put them as the front man, or your puppet pope. Good stuff, Aaron. Appreciate that comment. Very interesting. Yeah, they like I said, energy, right? You look for the symbols in that city, on that street, or when your dad lived there, see what symbols are there. You'd be surprised what hex they might have put on that street, because that hex is bound to the temporal energy that these families operate on. So they put your puppet pope, or your puppet Vatican, those guys you see with the nice white, and black robes. They're not. They're the dudes running the show. Not your pope. They the ones that write those laws and make sure that those laws that put themselves as intermediaries between you. When the pandemic hit your world, when the pandemic affected and is affecting the people of this earth, it was blessed by the Jesuits. It was blessed by your Vatican. You want to know who is directly responsible for anything that goes on in this earth? You're looking right at them. You know who they are and who they worship. They are from the synagogue of Lucifer, the synagogue of Satan. Karl Marx and Roosevelt and all these different presidents get their marching orders from the houses. And in those houses resides the bloodline families. Each house has a head of the family. There's many other houses, obviously. I'm just naming the main three, or have named the main three, right? The House of Rothschild. And you can go into the Rothschild family as we do this live now. And in that family tree will reside thousands, hundreds of hybrids that they've birthed into this earth, and birthed upon birthed their babies, birthing babies upon babies, and creating families within families within families, but all falls under the house of Roth, or the Red Shield. Whether it's the Frankfurt, whether it's the Astor, who knows, other families that falls under the banner of the house of Roth. Then when you go into the house of Gotha and Kohlberg, as we go here, let me stop this share and flip over to the other house. Sounds like some Game of Thrones stuff here, doesn't it? In this other house, you have their family tree. Kings upon kings upon kings upon princes upon queens, leaving babies upon babies upon babies, populating the earth with their species over and over since the beginning of God knows when. How many of these people are running our planet that could be running your media, running your TV, running your children's schools, birth upon birth upon birth upon birth, but they all are part of the same house of Kohlberg. And in that house, you may have many different names, many different families. Let me see if we can find famous family members of the house of Gotha. Let's see what they come up with. Who's a famous family? Oh, Ernest One Duke. The current head is Andreas, Prince of Kohlberg and Gotha. Let's look her up. Prince Andreas. Who is she? And where does she live? And is she still around today? Oh, here they are. Have you ever heard about them? Have you ever seen them before? Because we so focus on Queen Elizabeth, and Queen Elizabeth is only one piece. The Jews are only one piece of this bloodline family that has birthed and slept with in incest and through God knows what else, many different people. How many times have you heard about these or this prince? Prince Andreas. The head of the house. Royal. Jesuit. That might be his mom right here in this back picture. She probably knew Queen Elizabeth's mother. They probably used to drink tea and kill babies together. All these family members, right? Frederick Josias. Who knows what these people could be into? It could be your pharmaceutical. Maybe Anthony Fauci is connected to one of these houses. Could it be possible? Maybe Bill Gates are connected to one of these houses. Could that be logical? Could one of your famous celebrities, your Hollywood puppets, your Joseph Bidens, be connected to perhaps one of these houses? So then you go to the House of Lafayette, as I stop here and move over to their house, the House of Lafayette. And how many families did they have that they have birthed and babies upon babies upon babies? The Lafayettes married the Adams family, and the Adams family married the Dracul family, and the Dracul family, but they're all under that one house. I don't care what their last name is. Babies upon babies upon babies upon babies. And as you get into, this is old images, but if you get into modern day society, how many of these families have slept with black people? How many of these family members have mixed their bloodlines with Italian people, with Australian people, Latino people? How many of these bloodlines have slept and intermingled with the families in China, the Li family? They all have. They all have intermingled into racial sex, birth babies, because they need control, and they have embedded their tentacles like an octopus in all races, all systems, all societies, all aspects of it. And if you got some, if I can have, think about this for a second. If I could have my great 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 grandson, who's the head of the House of Gotha, to have sex with a royal black princess in Nigeria, to allow me to sink my tentacles in Nigeria and control that continent, you don't think I would? It is in my best interest in global domination to have my white, Jewish, white, Scottish, white, French, blue-eye, blonde hair man to sleep with a dark-skinned, brown-eyed, hazel-eyed princess in Africa, to merge the houses. And through the purity of the bloodline and the connection to Lucifer, that family will now be under the House of Gotha, or the House of Li, going into China. Or just go deeper in the spiritual world, the House of Brahmics, which is in India, the Brahmic house, or the bloodline of the Brahmics. So now you're intermingling with races, and you're breeding with races purposely to extend your global domination worldwide. So Lafayette family, famous members. Let's see if there's anybody in society that we can see as of today. The most illustrious members are Gilbert Montier de Lafayette. See if there's anybody there today. Who knows? This is when you start tracking bloodlines and you want to know who's who. Let me just see if this genealogy record. What's up, Shadow? Lafayette, look at this. Lafayette served in the American Revolutionary War. Wow. as a general and as a diplomat, serving entirely without pay. Of course, he didn't need to pay. His family runs the world. Lafayette's full name is seldom used in the United States, where he is usually known as General Lafayette or simply Lafayette, a Jesuit. Let's see what else they say about this house. His father, he was the father of one son and three daughters, of whom two survived. Henriette, George Washington Lafayette, whose godfather was Lafayette close friend George Washington. He married in 1802. Makes you wonder. Makes you wonder. It's from the House of Lafayette, which points back to the Vatican. There's more here. Marcus de Lafayette, the Continental Army. Might be one of the cousin, a second, third cousin or something of the original Lafayette family. House, I can type here. House of Lafayette. Even in the UK. And their tentacles spread everywhere. They have buildings and property. Some of these families control the fur industry, the furniture industry, real estate. Whereas the Rothschilds, we know they control banking. But look at this, the Lafayette house, dining and elegance. Maybe this family is responsible or control, restaurant industries. The House of Astor control real estate, which is Trump is a part of. Trump is a part of the Astor family. Real estate moguls. Real estate moguls. Think about it. All this house, Lafayette house, look at these chateaus. Which house controls the pharmaceutical industry? Makes you wonder if you go deeper. Wow, what's some great information here. The Jesuit order is directly responsible for the laws written and everything that I read in the beginning, even though it's a Unam Sanctum. They've been around and running the show since. So they are the direct connection to the bloodline and identifying the bloodline I don't want to say bloodline of Satan, but I'll say they are they are the ones that go out and ensure that the agenda, the satanic agenda, is fulfilled. They are the enforcers. They're called God's Marines, right? Didn't I read that? They're God's Marines. If so, what I told you guys about this whole pandemic, if nations don't do what they're told, there's a greater army out there that is far superior than the United States. There's weapons and mass weapons that's out there far superior than Russia, China, and United States combined. Whatever weapons that the United States have, whatever technology the United States have, or Russia or China, is only authorized by the Jesuit army. They control how much nations and how much of a sword each nation will have. And if a nation doesn't follow along, that nation will be destroyed. Germany didn't follow along, and therefore Germany was destroyed easily in World War II. They were winning every battle. And when they didn't follow along the Jesuits in one snap cut Germany off, and they died. They lost overnight. Poor Hitler. America will be next. If America doesn't play along with the Jesuit New World Order agenda and rolling out and helping to roll out this Luciferian agenda, United States will be shut down immediately. The United States will look like a third world country in overnight. So yes, the Jesuit is the military enforcement of Lucifer's agenda. That when you see these atrocities being done under the auspice of Mao Zedong, Idi Amin, Pol Pot, these are Jesuit-backed military goons that have no problem murdering billions and millions of people in the name of their Lucifer. These cops that you see in Canada, these cops are not Canadian cops. They purged them a long time ago. These cops were kicked out the force. All these cops here in America, they're going to get purged out. The ones that you're going to see marching these streets in America, they will not be from this world. And I mean that. They will not be from this world. They will be unhuman when you see the stuff that they do to us or to these people. The Jesuit army is referred to as God's Marines. I don't think there's no greater Marine that you could. You think the United States Marines can handle God's Marines? Like, come on, man. That's just the type of, you start getting into Knights Templars and the Knights of Malta and these sub. How do you think? Look, how do you think they were able to kill? They're toppling nations. When Himmler decided to go against the Jesuits, trust me, Himmler didn't last long when he did what he did. The German people didn't last long when Himmler got mad because the Jesuits decided to go a different route, and Himmler, like a, maybe he was kind of a petulant, spoiled brat, decided to get mad because they changed their mind and decided that Germany wasn't going to win the war. So he got mad and killed a couple of Jesuits. And Jesuits destroyed every single thing called Germany in Germany during the time of World War II, which created a civil war within the Jesuits. So what is, you guys ever heard of Sauron from the Lord of the Rings? This is like Sauron's army. If Satan had an army, what would it look like? Would it look like these guys? That if Satan was to unleash his army on the world to defeat all the other armies on the world, what would that army look like? Can you imagine? Like, let's use some creative thought here. They'd probably be like giants. Who knows? What type of beast exists in unknown vast areas of the continent. They unleash some army of hybrid Anunnakis that's like 10'3" with assault rifles. It'd be a blowout. There is rumors that the Jesuit armies do control and do have a very large army ready to mobilize immediately if governments do not follow its authority. One step that they do before that is toppling the nations and toppling the current regime. If Russia doesn't do what they're supposed to do, Putin will be toppled. The Russian government will be toppled, and they will instill a government that will do what they say. If the United States don't do what they say, the United States Congress and all their symbols and the pentagram and all that will be toppled. They will insert another possessed entity. This is what happened to Trump, folks. Trump didn't do what they told him to do completely, and he was ousted. He didn't lose. Nothing's going to get done. Nobody's going to get thrown in jail. Nobody's going to get arrested. Hillary Clinton is not going to get locked up. Hillary Clinton had nothing to do with this shit. Hillary Clinton is just a puppet. She was just like, look, I didn't even choose myself to be president. The Jesuits chose me. I ran against you. The election system's numbers came out different. I'm surprised my damn self. Don't blame me. Trump blaming her. Hillary, you should be in jail. No, Hillary's like, dude, you know who running the show? Me and you lucky to even be in this position. I'm lucky to get chosen just like you. They didn't choose us. They chose Biden. A riddle old man. A riddle old man they chose instead of them two. And them, can you imagine? Look at the day that we're in now. They are both sitting on the sidelines. The two greatest opponents, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, sitting on the sidelines, and a riddle old man is the president. Like, how did that happen? It should have either been her or him. The two, oh, you should be in jail. Oh, Trump, he's a Russian spy. And all this, you would have thought at least one of those two would have been the president. Instead, some riddle old man out of nowhere is running the show. And they don't have nothing to do with it. You start going to the top of that pyramid, and these people were selected. So it's all the show. Because the show behind the curtain, right, is these people serving the one alliance. And that one alliance is alliance to what? As they said in their doctrine, Ignatius said in their doctrine, right? If the church declare black as white, so be it. Through the Lucis Trust, through the Unam Sanctum that we read. Who is their Lord? Who is their God? Right? The same Karl Marx, the same communist agenda. It all leads back to that. One world, one this, one that, one boat, one puppet, one pilot, one sword, one this, one that, one climate change, one agenda, one this, one government, one industrial revolution, build back better, great reset, globalism, one this, one that, one. Who's the one? That one is Lucius. It's Saturn or Satan through energy, whether you talk about Satan, the actual physical deity, or Satan, the metaphorical energetic expression of lower energy. Low frequency, low vibration, low state, a low realm, a low octave. These people are low frequency, not you. You're not the sheep. They are the sheep. We should be controlling them. We should be beacons of truth and expressions of truth as witnesses to witness upon them. But we've been flipped into servitude. We've been placed under the sword. That sword, these swords that you're watching from these Knights Templars that they're holding, that sword is to protect the church and to kill you if you try to destroy it. They're going to poke you in the ass with this spear. I don't know what the heck is on that. It looks like I don't know what that symbol is. It looks like a bat, a dragon. It looks like a dragon or something that's on that. The great dragon that they worship. This army. Look at this. Look at these people. Look at the symbols. Shield. They still stuck in the 1500. They wearing breastplates. But let me tell you something. Don't be fooled by these breastplates. When they roll out, they're going to roll out with AR-15s and rocket launchers. This is just them paying homage to their history, to their culture, to their demonic culture, their satanic culture. You think this guy's going to wear this running into war? I doubt that. This is just them paying homage to their houses, using wearing the colors of the houses. Those colors of the houses are merged into one, which unifies those colors. So these colors is why they wear that, to unify the colors of the houses. Each house has a color. The red, obviously the Rothschild, Lafayette is blue, and the house of Goldberg and Katha is yellow. So this is them unifying the houses. This is why the Jesuits and these Templars wear these colors. They're always keeping remembrance that our houses are forever unified in that we'll never ever go to war with each other ever again. We're sorry, Satan. We was just too angry with each other. We promise we'll never fight each other again. This is Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel agreeing to never fight again. Whew, what a live stream today. What do you guys think about the live stream? What do you think? What do you guys think? Give me a feedback. What do you think about today? How was it? How was it? Was everything okay? So now you've learned from yesterday the foundation of who they are through what we read yesterday. You go check out that live stream, part 1. Now we're going a few steps in it down. Got it? Interesting. Thanks, yeah, right. Appreciate it. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Said it was epic. Epic. We need to discuss this, man. I like to get a chat with you, man, and as always, man, I want to get your thoughts and things that you've done in your research, that might confirm a lot of this stuff. So good stuff. Good stuff, man. That's what I say, guys. How deep you want to go? But I'll tell you one thing, from these 2 lessons that I gave you guys, you've learned far more than a lot of these truthers out here who always say Jews and theys and Jews and blacks and whites and this and that. You know a little bit more because now you can break down how the Jew got in power. You can break down who is they that gave the Jew the ability to control the banking system. These Jesuits have migrated through these houses, through many different families, and has slept with many different races, not just Germans or not just Jewish, not just Nordics or Scandinavians or Italians, or you could talk about how they slept with Chaldeans. Chaldeans goes back to Babylon. They've slept with Sumerians. They slept with Egyptians. They slept with Cushites. They slept with the families of Mao Zedong and the dynasties of Genghis Khan. They've made it with the Zulus. They've made it with the families of Napoleon. Their women have slept with the children and the offsprings of Alexander the Great, Apostle Paul, Judas Iscariot. They've made sure that every industry they are a part of. It could be something as simple as the gaming industry. And every now and then, my kids play a video game or something. You'd be surprised. They probably have members a part of Sony's board chairman. They probably slept with members in Microsoft, obviously Bill Gates or his children. The automotive industry, Henry Ford supplied parts to the Germans. Who knows how many industries outside of the main industries we talk about, like your banking, your political systems, who knows how many races that they've made it with. Look at as I get ready to close out here, look at Prince Harry. Let me show you something. Just so you to think. Just show you something so you can think a little bit before you start. You got to think deeper now. Let me show you this. Think about this, guys, and I'm gonna hit you with a little banger right here. You know damn well this is a black woman or a mixed woman with African black blood in her. And you know damn well this white boy is mixed in the blood of Prince Diana and his house's blood with his dad and his uncle and his brother. And this dude is bloodline to the pure. Bloodline to the pure. We talking about House of Rothschild bloodline to the House of Vlad Dracul to the purest. He's in the mix. Whether he's going to, get the throne now or the next 300 years, he is bloodline to the pure. His daddy is still alive and still over there in England and the UK and all that, and the House of Windsor doing his thing. Married a black woman or partially mixed black woman. You think these people give a shit? Meghan Markle, let me see. So watch this. Meghan. It's her mom and dad. It's her mom. Come on now. Think, man. This is her mom. Here's a picture of her mom with the baby. This is a black woman. Next to this snake, lizard, this lizard, and your boy showing that baby. And she happy. And she's gonna kiss that baby and love that baby, because when she sniffed that baby, she's not gonna eat that baby. Queen Elizabeth's not gonna eat that baby. Because when she sniffs that baby and she smells that baby with her lizard nose, that baby has that blood in it. That lizard blood. They probably get rid of her mama. They can care less about her mama, because her mama, whatever. They got the blood, but they're united. They're united. Are you listening to me? What Jew? What Jew? What Italian? What Irishman? They're mixing that bloodline with every single one of us, and don't care. They sleeping with black women, white women, Australian women, Asian women, Chinese women, Latino women, Mexican women, whatever you want to call it, Japanese, Filipino women. They sleep on there. They popping hybrids all over the place. As long as they can extend their kraken, their octopus, their chutulu or chutulu. And these people are royal. So long after we've dead and gone, 100 years, 200 years from now, or 1,000 years from now, this little bitty baby will grow and one day be a part of one of their particular systems running that particular house. And we, who are spiritual beings, will be looking down at this earth, saying to ourselves on a different type of live stream, hey, I remember that baby. That baby was Meghan Markle's and Prince Harry's baby. Now look at that baby waging World War X. That baby is now the general in somebody's army for World War X. I'm joking, but I'm serious. See, this is not a live stream. This is not a show. This is not a YouTube channel. You come here, you learn. You come here, you leave, and you can start your own school of thought and say, man, I come from Wise, and Wise taught me. Now you got a whole group of kids that you're teaching, and a whole group of teenagers and young people, and this is what I want. I don't want money. I don't need your flowers. I just need you to remember me. When you go out into the world and you start sharing this information, you start teaching this stuff to people the way that I'm doing it or the way that I've done it, then that makes me feel good. I know I've done my job on this earth. That I dropped the gem, taught you something, and you take that information now. You can take it and build upon it and maybe express it and teach it the way I've done it. A lot of people that get on these platforms and talk about all this stuff that they think they know, they don't know anything. They just regurgitating what they heard from a different channel. They don't have the thought. They can expand that thought. They don't know how to break things down in reasonable logic. They don't have that. They just read in a book and then spit it back page for page, word for word. Do they understand this stuff? They don't. Let's see. Let's see. Dana says, I question whether that baby is biologically connected. No, it's, oh, trust me. I have no doubt that is mixed in with their bloodline. They need to survive. Remember we talked about yesterday that they're a dying race. They are a dying species, like the concept of the movie Dark City. They are dying. Their genes cannot keep up with our constant growth. So making sure they merge our genes, merge our DNA, merge our, our biological they need that to survive. They're doing this all for the survival. We're doing it out of love. When you meet somebody and you have a child, and a family, you're doing it because you love. These people are animals, reptilians. They're doing this out of instinct survival. This has nothing to do with love and empathy. They're going around raping and murdering and eating and killing and all this. This is to keep them alive. They can care less about Meghan Markle or Princess Diana, which they don't care about them. If that woman dies and this woman can burn and crash in an airplane tomorrow, they wouldn't care. The first thing they're going to say is the baby alive. They'll take that baby, hook that baby up to an incubator. If that baby is, injured, they will hook that baby up to an incubator to make sure that baby can at least make it to 18 years old where it can, reproduce again. I mean, so I agree, I understand your logic. Like, these people could be fake and just live in a fictitious anomaly. But, from my research, I'm saying like they are truly looking for the best possible hosts to incubate their seeds. And one could even go that maybe this whole entire mRNA COVID, maybe this is a I'm acting silly here, but maybe this is a big audition. Think about that. Let me say that again as I get ready to wind down here. Maybe COVID was nothing but a big audition. Thanks, Sean. Sean see it. That's why I appreciate you guys, because you guys catch me. Most people I talk to, they be like, I don't get that. You guys catching me where I'm going with this. I'm just not going there yet. So I'm just dropping little gems, like little. I'm trying to feel to see if people feeling me, and I don't really want to go there yet because I don't want to shake you guys off the trail too much. Could this been a big audition for a dying race? I know these streams go long, and I'm sorry to keep you guys here, but man, when you sit back and listen to this, you might be like, yo, this dude, he's going for 3 hours, but this is some stuff. And I know, a lot of people don't have that long attention span. I apologize. On a Sunday, I'm gonna get ready to wrap it up too. But could this been a big audition to check the DNAs and check the RNAs out and see who's perfect? You can't just be sleeping with anybody. You might mess around and your genes get you end up suiciding yourself. You don't want to be with people. You don't want to mate with people with strong genes. You need somebody with recessive traits. Somebody would just not, So maybe that's what it was. Maybe this is what it is, to see if they could incubate you like Cocoon, like the movie Cocoon. But like I said before, if we're talking about all these different subtopics, once you understand the why and the they of those subtopics, the subtopics is so easy to discuss now. We can sit here and talk about let's revisit this real quick. Why did they roll out a pandemic? Now you could take that conversation about just the pandemic, that one psyop. Now you really see what I was talking about when I started talking about, hey, the DNA is the word. The DNA is the word that came from God, that was written in your bones, that was written in your body, that was written in your RNA. The mRNA means messenger. Messenger means the Messiah. The Messiah is you. The mRNA is written in you because you get the word from the DNA. They inject a false Messiah called a synthetic mRNA, or as Cuts call it, synthetic genomics. So they call it synthetic mRNA. So they put a false God inside of you. They put a false Messiah in you. Oh, whoa, what? So are people really turning into zombies? Or are people really turning into what? Luciferians? Oh, whoa. So Satan is a spiritual energy that needs to be brought and manifested into the physical life, that needs a conduit, like a media, like the media, like a TV. Oh, whoa, like a hologram, like a Project Bluebeam. Whoa, wait a minute. So Lucifer can vicariously use the body as a conduit to bring himself into existence. Whoa, so they're using the body as a host because the body is a church. The body is a ship, like Noah's Ark. Whoa. So you're going to get rid of the pilot, which is the Christ consciousness, and inside the pilot, remove that pilot, tie him up, kick him over the boat, make him walk the plank. And when you make the pilot walk the plank, you pop in a new pilot, the church or Satan. Oh, so Satan controls the church. Satan becomes the pilot of that boat. Oh, wow. You take these psyops. I don't care how big or small. And now you understand the very top of that small little throne that Lucifer sits on for planet Earth or business planet Earth, corporate Earth. Now you like, whoa, we dealing with a whole bigger angle. We're dealing with a whole big angle. See my point? Now you start, yeah, exactly, Aaron. You start getting into the maritime law and law in general. Then you start moving and people that, like Zachary K, they shift into gematria. You start understanding the Jewish mystery schools of Adonai, which is where gematria comes from. And to me and Zach, we crossed paths and I got on this with him. Say, I didn't study gematria all my life, been studying it, and it's not a path that I choose to focus on when I do live streams. I know about the Jewish mystery schools of Adonai. That's exactly where gematria come from, the Jewish mystery schools. Adonai, you want to get into the concepts of Dionysus. So these symbols and these numbers was ours to begin with. They've taken them and perverted them. It's never theirs. Those symbols and shapes don't belong to them. These symbols and shapes and numbers is written in you. They've hijacked it, the symbols and shapes, just like they will hijack your body and hijack your church and hijack your boat, your Noah's Ark. They're hijackers. They're bandits. The synagogue of Satan I introduced to you guys. So I hope this was interesting. Yeah, Luciferase, right? There you go, Sean. We get into that whole. Why would you think they would call that? Luciferase or Luciferase, right? Luciferase, right? They're trying to create a race or use you to keep their Lucifer race alive. Ooh, Charlie, this is some deep stuff. If you go, you better be strong because we're going to take some journeys in this discussions, boy. In the next live streams, we're going to keep getting deeper and deeper. If you can't handle this, you better get out. Tell them, yeah, right. If they can't go deep, they better get out. Here's your bathing suit and step out the pool because we about to go deep and it's going to be real. But you see easily how if you want to be on that stupidity, you could turn this into a racial superiority conversation. You could turn this into a racial domination. Black man is this, and the black man is better than the white man. White man is better. This is how Black Lives Matter and these racist groups, are they all part of the same plan to conquer, to destroy, and to create their one world Luciferian agenda. So when you start hearing people pushing that racism and pushing that, I hate niggers and I hate white people and I hate hunkies and I hate niggers and I hate spics and I hate chinks and I hate this, you already know, excuse my language, you already know, like these people, man, you doing exactly, you promoting, and you took a fraction of that truth, and you was too afraid to go to the top. So a lot of these groups, these supremacy groups, and these people, they're too afraid to go to the top. You think these the people at the top? Wait till I show you about the black pharaoh dynasties in Kush. Wait till we start talking about the black royalty families in Africa that might have had more power during the times of the 13th century and 1100th century and 800 AD before the Jesuits came aboard. You'd be like, holy crap. Wait till we start talking about the Chinese families. Okay? Going back to Feng Shui. Wait till we talk about India. And going back 7,000 years before the white race even appeared. Before any of this Vatican crap. There wasn't no Vatican back in, 100 AD. But even then, from earth they came. I mean, from heaven they came. The Jew didn't exist in China. The Jew came to China. The Jew didn't exist in Africa. The Jew came to Africa. The Jew didn't exist in Germany. The Jew came to Germany. And you start thinking on that higher level, you're like, dude, we all being used. Every race. Just like this little black mulatto, mixed white, mixed bloodline, mixed reptilian baby. And this black woman who, she a black sister. Shit. You think that shit matters anymore? You think Oprah Winfrey give a damn about your black power? You think Michael Jordan give a damn about your black power? You think Prince Harry give a damn about your white power? Like I told you guys before, the only color these people see is green. Green as in green money and green as in reptilian blood. That green reptilian blood. The only color they see is green. You mix that red blood with that reptilian blood, you all good with me. Oh man, look, I love you guys, man. I'm gonna get ready to get out of here. We'll go deep. I just don't want to lose you guys because I go deep. I don't want to lose you guys. You got pray, meditate, ask the universal creator to continue to guide you and to keep you guys and give you guys protection. To lead us towards the true source, not the false source or the false light, but the true light. With so much distraction and so much energy and so much facade, do you truly know what God you're worshiping? Do you even truly know the true word? That's why the word was never, in my opinion, I don't believe the word was ever written in a book. Because just like I read today from the Unam Sanctum, they were easily to take the scriptures and manipulate them to their nefarious evil agenda. Are you sure you're reading the true scripture? Are you sure, absolutely sure you're reading the true word? I'm not saying that there's truth not in the Bible or truth not in the Quran and truth not in the Gospels or the Injil or the Torah or the Sanskrit scriptures of ancients. Or the Vedics, we can go on and on with the Tao or the Buddhist, Buddha. I'm not saying that truth is not in it, but do you know that the true word is written inside of you? The true book is inside of you. And once you understand that, when you read these books, you would ask for discernment, you would ask for wisdom, you would ask the creator, the true source, the universal creator, to navigate you so that you don't read the doctrine of the fallen. Beware of the scriptures and the verses and the chapters of those that are fallen, because they embedded themselves in all society. They not only embedded themselves in banking systems, in agriculture, in pharmacy, they not only embedded themselves in races and slept with multiple different races over the ancients since the beginning of time. They've also embedded themselves in your religion, in your books, in your food. Be careful what you eat. Be careful what you read. And be careful what you see. All right. Peace to everybody. I love you guys. This is great. And as always, wake up. It's 1984. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
Why don't you kill me?
The first thing you must understand about this place, Winston, is that there are no martyrdoms. You've read of the religious persecutions of the past. They were failures. They set out to eradicate heresies and they ended by perpetuating them. We do not make that mistake. We make them tell the truth.
Why bother with me?
not a flaw in the pattern when you are a stain which has to be wiped out. When finally you confess to us, it must be of your own free will. We do not destroy the heretic, we convert him. We capture his inner mind. We reshape him. We burn all evil out of him. We bring him over to our side, not merely in appearance, but genuinely, heart and soul. We make him one of ourselves. No one whom we bring to this place ever stands out against us. We will lead you, step by step, to the point from which there is no return. Never again will you be capable of love or friendship, or joy of life, or laughter, or courage, or curiosity, or integrity. You will be hollow. We will squeeze you empty, and then we will fill you with ourselves, with love of Big Brother. Now, before we begin your journey,